everybody, welcome to a new episode of Walk in Faith. We're in Orlando, Florida at NRB, and I'm sitting down with Michael Scott, the co-founder of PureFlix, and also, is it the CEO as well?
Yes.
Nice to see you again. I see you all over the place, online and in social media, and now at NRB.
Well, thank you. I always love this interview. It's always fun, and it's great. It's great to be here, though. I appreciate it so much.
Last year you said if I was to subscribe to PureFlix within a month, I think it was a month, you said, that I would cancel my other subscriptions. And within a month, within a couple of days, I found myself watching everything on PureFlix.
You know, it's amazing. I always find the same thing. Like, your soul, your spirit, it craves something really good, inspiring, hopeful, all of those things. And when you start consuming stuff like that, you realize the other stuff you're watching, you see the stark contrast. And you're like, wow, what's going on? And I think that's what PureFlix gives, that alternative. And I think as people can start consuming it, they really start to check what they're bringing into their system and what they're bringing into their eyes and listening to, and they start to look at the world a little differently.
You're right. I mean, it's like a monitor that goes off. So like someone will advise me, watch this, the best show ever, right?
Right.
They obviously don't know me well enough to say that because they would know I wouldn't watch it. I put it on within 3, 4, 5 minutes. I'm like, no. Because if the first episode is going in a direction that...
You already know where it's headed.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, this is not going to work. And then my wife and I will go out with friends and like, don't even mention TV shows to Craig. Because I'm like, do you want to know what I'm watching this week?
Exactly.
Did you see Genesis on PureFlix? Did you see David A.R.Y. play a janitor, then a basketball star?
I love that movie. This is a great movie.
I'm tuned in a sense to I don't want to watch anything.
Right.
It's like this inventory, right? This bell that goes up that says, I can't watch that.
Well, and I even watch shows now on other places, and I'll be like really good, right? And then all of a sudden it's like they've forced that moment into it, and you're like, what? Why? Why did we have to do that? Like, what were we trying to further with the story? And now a lot of times it's not even to further the story, it's just we need to inject this in there. We got to check this box.
I saw a movie
to check this agenda
recently where there was a scene, I'm not going to mention it, and this scene, they must have just told the actress, it was a big movie, just say this line. Because I'm like, if that was in the script, it didn't even make sense to the storyline, but it was like she added this one line, and I'm like, oh, you just ruined the whole movie.
You did, and then you're thinking about that, and you're like, why did they do that? Or what was they thinking? And then it takes away from the whole thing, and I think it's sad, but Hollywood has shifted so far. You know, that pendulum has swung so far, but you know, when you swing a pendulum, guess what happens? It swings back the other way eventually. Well,
that's interesting you said that. So we're working on another film, and the working title is there still a place for God in Hollywood?
Okay.
Do you think so?
I think biblically, yes. You know, God wants to see everybody redeemed, including the Hollywood, which is so influential in our society, right? I believe Jesus told stories in parables, right? And the modern day parable of that is movies and television. And I think so often, sometimes in the past, the church had just written off in the 80s and 90s all of Hollywood. And I think it's not Hollywood that's the problem. The medium's wonderful. Just like I would say, if I was to cuss and swear into this mic, it doesn't make the microphone evil.
Interesting.
It's the content that goes over it. So if we can put out the right content and connect with people, their hearts and their minds, right? That's what people will want. And so the better we're able to tell stories, the better the production values, the more people will connect with. And ultimately, Hollywood's driven by money. Yes, agendas play a role, but money is the all equaler. And so if people really want this type of content, the more we support it, the more it produces the cash, people will start to make it. Even Hollywood's can't deny that we got to make some of these faith movies. We got to put some of these out. And I think the more as Christians and others that want good stuff, support what's there and you'll see more of it.
Thought about that point too, and I said, you know what? They're driven by money, right? The bottom line. But we've proven to them that that faith-based movies could make a huge impact and profit, right? We look at some of the numbers.
Right.
You know, there was a film with The Only Son, right? It made $13 million or probably more by now on a $250,000 budget. But yet you don't see Hollywood stepping up as much and saying we can make a lot of money off of faith-based or Christian films. Why is that? If it's driven by money.
Now, they don't fully understand it. They haven't been able to put it into a neat little box and a formula. Do you know what I'm saying? And so you've seen a success here, a failure here, a success here. So they're trying to figure that out. I think that sometimes they think the audience can be a little fickle.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they're weighing all of these things that sit out there. I think that's why we need to have a voice. We need to support what's out there. I believe that as Christians, we need to have a voice in everything that's going on. There's a huge political divide that's very divisive, but we also need to show people that we're not just the divisive people. Jesus was all about love, right? And if we can ultimately show God's love, people will respond to that.
Agree.
You'll never talk somebody into the kingdom, but you might be able to love them into the kingdom.
I agree. It's the actions. It's how we carry ourselves.
That's right.
That's a great point. I mean, so tell me about some of the movies and the shows that are on PureFlix. I mean, I know obviously because I watch them, but what do you have coming up? I mean, what do you have it's currently on there?
I am so excited.
What's
This is like
trending
it's like endless, you know. And for people that don't know, you know, it's a streaming service, so you can watch thousands of movies and television shows on PureFlix. You can get it on any device, anywhere. But we just I'll talk about just recently we released Karen Kingsbury. Everybody knows the author, New York Times bestseller. Her book, 1,000 Tomorrows, did a 6-part series on it. Great series.
Wow.
It's got a little rodeo. It's got a little romance in it. It's got some great faith. You really get to see how God works in difficult situations, and it's really a great series. Love that one. We got a movie called God's Country Song coming up on Father's Day. Justin Gaston, country music artist, great music in it, all original music from him. It's really good. And that really is a movie about fatherhood and the importance of dads and what it means. And I think in today's world, it's really, really important. Moms are important, but also dads are as well. And so we're having that movie. Got an awesome series who you were just interviewing, David A.R. White. He's in Rev Road, great series. I mean, we did 3 movies on that before that were hit movies. It's that end time. So for the guys out there, you got the action, you got the adventure, you got the end times, end of the world, all wrapped up in this whole story. I think people like it. Brian Bosworth's in it, which is great. That's really cool. And that I liked it because every once in a while, I don't want to just watch the typical drama. I need a little bit of that action as well.
It was a little, and I said, because I watched it at nighttime, and I said, after the first 20 minutes, I had to okay, this is a daytime movie. I need my fluff. I need David to play the coach or the vigilante. There's certain ones. I'm I'll watch that.
We got that too. We got a movie coming up, Divine Influencer, which is really good.
Yes, which
dealing with the social media issue
That's
that we have
topic.
today, and who's really influencing us. You know, is it God that's influencing us? Are we influenced by, you know, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, and all of that, which I think have really hurt us in the content they're putting out there, the pressure it's putting on our youth and our young people, and even us as adults. And so that really tackles that issue. I think a lot of the movies that we do, we want to show real life and people using their faith or God coming in to really help people, because I believe at the end of the day that the Bible, our Lord and Savior, He's there to help us in the moments we need to get past, right? And who are we relying ultimately on? Our own strength or God's strength? And I think a lot of these movies show, you know, people overcoming obstacles to get to the other side. And a lot of us everybody's got obstacles. Just because we're Christian doesn't mean there's trials and tribulations. But it depends on who we're relying on during those trials and tribulations to get over. I think makes a huge difference. And I think with movies, you get a chance to tell these incredible stories, to see how God worked in these incredible situations.
And your films, I mean, they're so different. There's one, I don't remember the title, and he's a motivational speaker, and then he starts driving a small truck. It's like a delivery truck. And it's such a powerful movie.
I'm trying to remember which one it is.
There's so many films. I've been watching that, but it's relatable because he's feeding the flesh, right?
Because
and he's shrinking and he's not carrying himself properly, and his manager's like, you have to stop. And then he learns how he goes to his community service, and his life changes. And I'm like, and he's a young guy and he's cool. And I'm like, this was so relatable, you know. And there's certain films that will relate to somebody else, but the message is clear.
That's right.
I mean, there's so much great content on PureFlix app.
And that's what our spirit is ultimately crying out for. You know, what we feed ourselves is what comes out. And America now is spending 10, 11 hours a day connected to a device, a television, a phone, or whatever, watching something, doing something. So ask ourselves what we're feeding ourselves. I hear it so often, which is interesting. We're so hyper vigilant about sometimes what our kids are watching.
Oh my God, I know.
Which I think we should be. Don't get me wrong. But we're not concerned about what we're watching.
Exactly.
It's very interesting. I'll never forget, there was a moment, this is probably about 8, 9 years ago. I was sitting on the couch with my son, and we were watching a show, and that moment came on, and you're covering his eyes, you know, don't listen, all this thing. And we get through that scene, right? And I tell you that, he's like, can you push pause? And he looks at me and he says, why is it okay for you to watch it, but not me? Boy, it makes you take a little inventory.
Ephesians, do not exasperate your children.
Right, takes you a little, take account of what you're doing, because I think we need to equally do it, because not only is it for us, but our children are watching how we act too.
Yep.
You know, and if we're doing it, then it's okay for them.
And that goes across with everything.
Correct.
Music, right? I don't listen to the music I listened to when I was a kid.
Right.
Right? And because the same thing, how we treat people.
Right.
Like, I mean, there's so much, how we carry ourselves. I mean, all of that. I mean, we're setting the model, the
and
role model.
today, the world's looking at us and they're saying, what they're seeing a lot reflected is they're saying they're hypocritical.
That's exactly.
Right. And we're not going to be perfect. Nobody's ever going to be perfect.
They're looking to
But I
point
think
that
we can
out.
do a better job than we're presenting right now. And it's not about presenting, because we're not trying to put on a face. What it really is, getting that down in our spirits, because then once we got the right things that we're consuming and taking in, that's what comes out.
You're right. You need to do an inventory of everything.
Yes.
Right? I mean, I before I go to sleep, I only watch certain things, only read certain books, because I want someone that if they want to come to my house and look at what I read, what I watch, who I talk to, how I speak, it's all in line.
Right.
Right?
They're
There's
not
nothing-
like, wait.
Yeah, that's not the same guy on Monday as he was yesterday.
Yeah.
It always has to be in line. I think that's how we we model that behavior.
And it's a hard thing today.
Yes.
Because you're around that water cooler and they're telling you, did you watch that show?
Yep.
And then
you want to fit in.
And you want to fit in, but you know that show has sex, language, and violence, and all these things, and you're like, so you feel this compelling urge. And not to say, some of those stories are very compelling story-wise, so they draw you in, but they're not drawing you into the right things.
Exactly.
And then it's like, well, you know, I'll just do it. I'll indulge a little bit, guilty pleasure, whatever.
Just to have that sort of conversation.
That's
what it was. Succession.
And then one conversation leads to another,
Yep.
and then before you know it, you're watching 20 of those, and you're 10 hours a day doing that.
I'm happy that it doesn't pull me in all the way.
Right.
I'm really happy. But thank you for everything for PureFlix and the content you put out. So if somebody wants to find out more information or subscribe, or how do they?
You know, a lot of people got Netflix and Amazon Prime and all this thing. Get PureFlix. Download the app. Go on the website, pureflix.com, sign up. Then you can get it on any device, anytime. We have thousands of movies and television shows, and you sign up for one monthly fee.
It's worth it.
You can watch some stuff that ultimately, we have stuff for your kids, ton of kids stuff. We have stuff for the adults, great movies, dramas, action, comedies, romances. But you know what? I say the content on PureFlix will always point you closer to God, not further away.
Yep.
And that's the difference.
And to your point too, when I search for shows, let's say on Netflix, I have to read, I have to look at it. When I put on something PureFlix, I don't have to worry about it.
You don't have to worry about it.
I don't have to read anything. I know it's going to be wholesome. It's going to inspire me, uplift me. It's not going to be something where after 10 minutes I'm like, that was the purpose of this film.
Exactly.
To draw me into, use whatever tool they're trying to use and not bring me closer to Christ.
That's right, and it's so important. And today I think we need it. And my hope too is I want to see more filmmakers, more movies come out, bigger and better stories, better production value, better acting. Ultimately, that we can draw more people to the kingdom, because storing up treasure down here doesn't mean anything. It's what is the eternal treasure that we're doing, and our lives are a reflection. And so when we're out in the communities, whether you're making films, you're at work, everything, does our lives reflect Christ?
Right. We're called to be the mirror of Christ.
That's right.
Thank you,
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Walk in Faith. Always remember, you have the ability to inspire and evangelize through your words and actions, and download PureFlix. I've been a fan, and I've been watching PureFlix for months now, every night, and I advise you to do the same. God bless you.